What happens when a car dealership owner walks into his own showroom and gets lied to about the very cars he helped design the sales pitch for? Victor Foster stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching the glass doors of the dealership swing open and shut as customers walked in and out. He adjusted the baseball cap low over his forehead, tugged at the collar of his faded jacket, and took a slow breath. 15 stores. He'd built them from scratch, starting with a single lot in a dusty part of town 15 years ago. Now, his dealerships dotted 3 states, and each one carried his reputation. Or at least, it used to. He'd been hearing things, small complaints trickling through customer feedback, a few bad online reviews that were brushed off by corporate. They'd all come from the same location, Store 7 on the edge of the city. Nothing concrete, missed callbacks, pushy sales guys, some pricing confusion. His district manager, Kyle, had assured him it was just typical customer noise. But Victor knew better. He trusted people too easily before and paid the price, so he made a decision. No heads up, no emails, no briefings. He was going undercover, the reason no one would recognize him? Easy. Most of his hires were recent. He hadn't personally met the new staff at Store 7. Corporate handled onboarding now, and Victor had aged. His beard was fully gray, and his once athletic frame now leaned toward average. Dressed like an everyday middle-aged guy, no one gave him a second look. He walked in through the front door. The showroom was spotless. Bright lights bounced off polished hoods. Engines gleamed under lifted hatches. A few customers stood by the coffee machine, flipping through brochures. "Hey there, welcome in." A man in a tight button-down shirt stepped up. Gold watch, slicked back hair, and a smile that felt more rehearsed than real. "Name's Brandon. You looking to buy today?" Victor nodded. "Yeah, thinking about something reliable, maybe pre-owned. My truck just died on me." Brandon's smile widened. "You came to the right place, my man. We got the best deals in the city. Let me show you what we got." Victor followed him outside, mentally noting how quickly Brandon had gone from greeting to pitch. No questions about budget, no listening, just a push. "This one right here." Brandon patted the hood of a white SUV, barely used. "Only one owner. Lady drove it to church and back. No accidents, no funny business." Victor squinted at the windshield sticker. The VIN looked familiar. "Too familiar, you sure about that?" he asked. "Absolutely. Cleanest history you'll find. I'd stake my commission on it." Victor nodded slowly. He'd get the Carfax himself later. But deep down, he already knew. He remembered this VIN because this car had been traded in 2 months ago after a rear-end collision. The damage had been fixed, but it wasn't church and back clean. They walked through the lot and Brandon kept talking. Every car had a story. Every story sounded too good to be real. Victor asked about warranties and Brandon danced around the question. He claimed cars had features they didn't. Said prices were final, even though Victor knew there was always wiggle room. Then inside the showroom again, Brandon leaned in. "Look, I'll be honest with you, man. We're the only dealership in town that isn't gonna play games. Other places, they'll screw you over. Here we're straight shooters." Victor blinked. Brandon had just lied about 3 cars in a row. And now this, he decided to test him. "What about that one?" Victor pointed to a black sedan in the corner. "Looks sharp." Brandon lit up. "Ah, that's our top seller, fully loaded, backup cam, leather, heated seats. And listen, don't tell anyone, but I can knock off 500 if you're ready to sign today." Victor walked over to it. Opened the door, no leather, no heated seats, no backup cam. He turned back slowly. "You sure this one has all that?" Brandon didn't flinch. 100%. "Must be a newer model. They probably just haven't added the features to the display yet." Victor looked him dead in the eyes. "You ever get people coming back angry, saying stuff wasn't what they thought?" Brandon shrugged. "If they don't read their paperwork, that's on them." Victor felt the heat rise behind his ears. He clenched his jaw and stepped back. "Mind if I take a test drive?" "Sure thing." Brandon tossed him a key fob with a wink. "Let's get you in the fast lane." Victor drove the car to a nearby lot, parked, and sat in silence for a while. The lies weren't small. They weren't just sales fluff. They were active deception. And if Brandon was doing this with such ease, it meant two things: he'd been doing it for a while, and no one had stopped him. Back at the dealership, Victor returned the keys and asked to speak to the manager. "Jason's out right now," Brandon said. "He usually dips early on Saturdays." "You good though? You ready to sign?" Victor smiled tightly. "Not yet, I'll come back tomorrow." Brandon gave a flashy nod. "Don't wait too long, deals like this disappear fast." Victor walked out, stomach twisting. The manager leaves early. The top salesman lies without flinching. And no one's watching. He slid into his rental car and pulled out his phone. "Hey," he said when Kyle answered. "I want every sales record from store 7 over the past 90 days, and pull the customer complaints, no filters." Kyle hesitated. "Okay." "Why?" Victor looked out at the dealership, anger burning in his chest. "Because I think we've got a real problem, and I'm not staying quiet about it." Victor arrived back at store 7 just after opening the next morning. A light drizzle tapped against the windshield as he parked along the side of the building, out of view from the main lot. No cap this time. No jacket. He wore a dealership-branded polo he'd pulled from storage that still had the old logo embroidered over the chest. Some minor updates had been made to the uniform since then, but nothing that would raise suspicion. He walked in through the service entrance and headed straight for the employee area. A younger guy with tired eyes and a coffee-stained sleeve glanced up from a folding table near the lockers. "You knew?" he asked, chewing a mouthful of granola bar. Victor nodded. "Started today. They told me to check in with the sales team." The guy gave a half nod and pointed toward the showroom. "Good luck. Brandon's already in a mood." Victor stepped through the hallway and into the main floor. The lighting was still warming up, casting a soft yellow hue over the polished cars. 3 salespeople stood around the central desk, sipping coffee and talking low. One of them, taller, lean build, sleeves rolled up, noticed Victor and waved him over. "You with corporate or something?" he asked, glancing at the polo. Victor shook his head. "Just starting. They told me to shadow someone today." The man raised an eyebrow. "No one told us we were getting a trainee." "Probably slipped through," Victor replied. "I can hang back until someone's free." Just then, Brandon walked in from the lot, wiping rain from his forehead with a service towel. His voice cut through the room. "Who's the guy?" the tall salesman shrugged. "Says he's starting today." Brandon looked Victor up and down. "They're sending us help now. Must be our lucky day." He turned to the desk. "Put him with me. Let him see how it's actually done." Over the next several hours, Victor followed closely as Brandon worked the floor. He watched customers enter hopeful, curious, and leave either confused or rushed into commitments they didn't fully understand. Brandon's rhythm was relentless. He interrupted questions with jokes, cut off concerns with exaggerated urgency, and glossed over paperwork that deserved explanation. In the early afternoon, an older couple came in holding hands. They stopped near a silver crossover and began reading the info sheet. Brandon motioned toward them. "Watch and learn." As they approached, the woman smiled. "We're just browsing, really." "Of course," Brandon said. "But you picked the best one on the lot. That model's got the highest resale value in its class, and I've got 2 more people scheduled to test drive it today. Won't last long." Victor watched her hesitate, then glance at her husband. "You mind if we take a quick look inside?" the man asked. Brandon unlocked the door. "Absolutely. You'll love the interior. Real leather imported. You won't find that on this year's base models." Victor leaned in behind them. The seats were standard cloth. He said nothing. Back inside, Victor stepped aside as Brandon ushered the couple toward his desk. The woman looked uncertain. Her husband was already pulling out a notepad with financing questions. Victor took the opportunity to slip toward the service bay. The air inside was thicker oil, coolant, tire, rubber. A tech crouched by a lifted sedan, socket wrench in hand, earbuds in. Another was hunched over a diagnostic screen, frowning. "Hey," Victor said. "You the service lead?" The man at the screen turned. Mid-30s, dark circles under his eyes, shirt collar damp with sweat. "That's me. Your sales?" "Shadowing today." Just checking out the full operation. The lead tech wiped his hands on his pants. Wish you'd brought us another set of hands instead. Victor raised an eyebrow. That's short-staffed. 2 guys quit last month. Management hasn't filled the spots. They say we're holding it down fine. But we're weeks behind on non-priority jobs. People come in for oil changes and end up waiting 3 hours. He gestured toward a clipboard on the wall, crammed with repair orders. Victor scanned the list. You ever get complaints sent up about that? Plenty. But Jason says as long as the survey scores stay above average, we're fine. He pushes us to move faster, but we're already skipping half the inspections. Victor looked him in the eye. Anything serious get missed? The tech hesitated, then nodded. Last week, a brake line was almost shot. Car came in for a tire rotation. We caught it, but barely, if we'd been in a rush. He let the sentence hang. Victor exhaled through his nose. Appreciate you being straight with me. He turned back toward the showroom, the weight of the conversation settling in. At the front desk, 2 women were entering data into the CRM system. One of them wore a headset and spoke softly into the mic, logging a call. The other, tapping her keyboard, glanced up as Victor passed. You knew, Victor offered a polite nod. Just today. She leaned closer. If you're smart, stay out of Brandon's way. He'll throw you under the bus the second something goes wrong. Victor paused. That happen often? Last week, he blamed me for losing a lead, said I forgot to set the appointment. Turned out he never even called the guy back. The headset-wearing woman muted her mic. He does that to everyone, but Jason covers for him. They're tight. Victor thanked them and stepped away. By late afternoon, Victor had witnessed 4 sales, each with its own flavor of omission or exaggeration. A young couple, visibly nervous about financing, had been pushed into a package that included a high-interest maintenance plan. A single mother looking for something under budget had been steered toward a newer model with flexible terms. Though the monthly payments were nearly double what she'd asked for, Victor kept quiet through it all, letting the day stretch out. When the last customer signed and left, Brandon leaned back in his chair, folding his hands behind his head. See what I mean now, he said, grinning. This job's about confidence. People think they're buying a car. What they're really buying is the guy selling it. Victor didn't respond. Brandon shrugged. You'll get it, or you won't. Not everyone can do this job. Half the guys who start here quit in a month. As the team began closing up, Victor slipped out. He drove a few blocks away before pulling into a quiet parking lot. He opened his laptop and accessed the dealership's internal system. He pulled up the sales logs. Brandon had closed over 50 deals in the past month. His average sale price was the highest of any employee across all 15 stores, but the return rate on extended warranties, alarming. Nearly 30% of his customers had tried to cancel within the first week. Several notes mentioned confusion over what was included. Victor then reviewed the customer service log. The system flagged recurring complaints, misleading info, pushy tactics, unreturned calls. Most were marked resolved without detail. He leaned back in his seat and stared at the screen. This wasn't a fluke. It was a culture. A system built on volume, not trust, and the person running the floor had no intention of changing. Victor closed the laptop and made a call. The voice on the other end picked up immediately. I need a copy of Jason's performance reviews, Victor said, and I want to know who's been approving his bonuses. There was a pause. Everything okay? Victor stared out the windshield, jaw tight. No, but it will be. Soon. Rain had stopped by the time Victor returned to Store 7 the following morning, but the clouds hung low and heavy, matching his mood. He parked in the same side lot, this time carrying nothing but a clipboard and a neutral expression. He walked in through the front entrance, not bothering with a disguise now. The front desk receptionist glanced up from her monitor, confused for a split second, then stood. Before she could speak, Jason appeared from the hallway, his shirt untucked and hair still damp from a rushed shower. You need something? Jason asked, eyes narrowing as he scanned Victor's face. Victor didn't answer. He walked past the desk and into the center of the showroom. Two salespeople stopped mid-conversation. Brandon was already seated with a customer, flipping through a financing folder. He looked up, briefly annoyed at the interruption, then froze. Victor turned toward him, voice steady. "Finish up. Then I want everyone in the break room in 10 minutes. Brandon blinked slowly, color draining from his face. The customer turned to look at him, confused. Jason caught up, voice a notch higher. "Excuse me, but who exactly?" Victor held up one hand without turning. "Don't say anything yet, just meet me in the back." He walked straight through the sales floor and into the employee lounge. A stale pot of coffee steamed quietly on the counter. The same tech from the day before sat at the table, tying his boot. He looked up. Your Victor nodded. "Yeah." 10 minutes later, the lounge was packed. Sales team, service crew, reception staff. Jason stood near the back, arms crossed. Brandon leaned against the vending machine, face unreadable. A few employees looked between them, trying to figure out what was happening. Victor stood near the front, clipboard still in hand. "I'm Victor Foster. I own this dealership, all of them actually." He paused. "I've spent the last few days here as a customer, then as a trainee. I didn't tell anyone because I needed to see things the way they actually are." No one moved. A few people shifted uneasily. "I'm going to lay this out clearly," he continued. "Some of what I saw here is unacceptable. Not just mistakes, not just growing pains. I'm talking about behavior that puts this entire dealership at legal risk and destroys the trust we've spent years building." He turned toward Brandon. "Yesterday, you sold a car with false claims about its features. You made up a story about a previous owner. You pressured customers into packages they didn't understand. You told people things that you knew weren't true." Brandon opened his mouth, but Victor cut him off. Not right now." He looked at the rest of the team, scanning each face. "I also saw people under pressure. Service staff working with half the crew they need. Front desk employees taking the blame for mistakes they didn't make. No one should be forced to cover for leadership that isn't doing their job." Jason stepped forward. "With all due respect," Victor's tone didn't change. "You've left early on multiple days. You haven't responded to flagged customer issues. You've signed off on Brandon's sales without reviewing complaint data. You've created an environment where lying is rewarded and accountability is avoided." Jason's face tightened. Victor turned to the group at large. "This is going to change, starting today." He looked at the tall tech near the back, the one who had spoken to him in the service bay. "You're taking over as interim service lead. I've already flagged your name with corporate. You'll get the support you need, staffing, tools, and time. I want a new inspection process in place by the end of the week." The man blinked, then nodded slowly. Victor turned to the receptionist who had warned him about Brandon. "You're now the customer experience coordinator. Any complaints go to you first. You'll review them with me directly for the next 30 days. She looked stunned. "Me, you see what's going on. That's more than I can say for the people who were supposed to." He finally turned toward Brandon. "You're done here. Effective immediately. You'll be escorted out after this meeting. Your sales might be high, but they're built on dishonesty. I'm not burning this company down to keep one person's numbers inflated." Brandon didn't speak. His jaw clenched, fists balled at his sides. He pushed off the vending machine and walked out without a word. Victor faced Jason next. "You have two options. You can resign today quietly, or I can initiate a formal review of your conduct. Either way, you won't be managing this store tomorrow." Jason didn't move. His lips parted slightly, but no sound came. Then he turned and followed Brandon out. Victor looked around the room again. "I'm not here to make a speech. I'm here to rebuild this place the right way. That starts now. I'll be on site for the rest of the week. You'll see me here every day, not behind a desk, out there with you." He paused. "If you're doing the right thing, you'll have my full support. If you're not, you're going to be very uncomfortable." No one spoke, but the atmosphere had shifted. People stood straighter. A few looked at each other with something close to relief. Victor said nothing else. He walked out of the break room and back to the sales floor. By mid-afternoon, he had taken over Jason's desk. He reviewed every pending customer file. He called back 4 recent buyers personally, apologized for confusion, and offered to adjust their purchase terms. 2 accepted. 1 had already begun filing a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. Victor told him he'd take care of it personally. In the service bay, he walked through the backlog with the new interim lead, creating a triage system to prioritize safety issues. He authorized overtime pay for the weekend and called corporate himself to approve 2 new hires. The techs didn't celebrate. They were too tired for that, but they did move faster, more focused, more grounded. Late in the day, the young receptionist knocked on his temporary office door and stepped inside. "You should see this," she said, holding out a printed email. It was a customer response, one of the couples who had bought from Brandon. They'd read Victor's follow-up note and were shocked. They hadn't expected to hear from an owner. They were coming back in the next day to review their paperwork. Victor read the email twice, then handed it back. "Keep all of those. I want a folder of every customer who's heard from us directly," she nodded. Before she left, she hesitated. "People are talking," she said quietly. Not scared, just surprised in a good way. Victor leaned back in his chair. "They should be. It's been too long since someone paid attention." That night, he didn't go back to the hotel. He stayed late, emptying Jason's filing cabinets, cataloging every unchecked issue, every ignored request. He found a drawer stuffed with unopened customer letters, mailed feedback forms that had never been scanned or logged. He spread them out across the desk, reading each one. He didn't feel angry anymore, just clear. This wasn't going to be a one-day fix. It never was, but it had started. And this time, he wasn't handing the wheel back until he knew exactly where they were going. By Thursday morning, the dealership ran with a new rhythm, uneven but unmistakably different. Victor arrived just after sunrise. He didn't use the manager's office anymore. Instead, he claimed an empty workstation near the reception desk, where he could see everything. The entry, the lot, the showroom, and most importantly, the faces of the people walking in. He didn't bring coffee. He didn't need it. The night before, he'd fallen asleep at the motel with a stack of printed customer complaints on the nightstand and a legal pad filled with notes. Not ideas, actions. He wasn't interested in brainstorming. He was fixing. He started the morning by sitting down with Mayra, the woman now coordinating customer experience. She looked more alert than she had earlier in the week, but her voice still carried a cautious edge. "I've got 5 callbacks scheduled today. 2 are people who signed with Brandon. One of them seemed like they were ready to escalate to legal," she said, flipping through her binder. Victor nodded once. "You feel comfortable leading the calls?" "I do," she said. Then, after a pause, "But I've never dealt with someone threatening legal action. You don't need to argue with them, just listen, let them talk. Then ask what they feel would make things right. If it's reasonable, we do it. If not, you pull me in." She closed the binder slowly. "You're really staying on this, aren't you?" "I'm not here to watch," he said. "I'm here to repair what I ignored." She didn't respond, but something in her expression softened. By mid-morning, Victor stepped into the service bay. The new interim lead, Caleb, was kneeling beside a crossover with the front wheel off, checking the suspension bracket. Sweat lined his temples despite the cool temperature. Another tech worked 2 bays down, replacing an ignition coil. The third bay was empty, a reminder of the open role still unfilled. Victor waited until Caleb was done with the bracket. "Any close calls today?" Caleb stood and wiped his hands. "No, but I had to bump 2 walk-in oil changes." "Not enough hands." "I've got the job listing posted on 5 boards," Victor said. "But I'm not rushing the hire. I want someone you'd trust working next to you." Caleb nodded. "Appreciate that." Victor stepped closer to the clipboard mounted on the wall. "You've rearranged the queue," he said. "I see you've got safety checks at the top now." "Yeah. We're using yellow tags for anything that's a potential safety issue, red when it's urgent. We've already caught 3 that would have gone unnoticed before." Victor tapped the clipboard. "Smart system." "Keep it." Back on the showroom floor, the pace had changed. Sales consultants now walked customers through every page of their offers, and Victor sat in on 2 of the presentations, saying nothing. He just took notes. The nervous energy that had filled the air earlier in the week had been replaced with something steadier, cautious professionalism. At noon, Victor stepped outside. The air was damp, the sky still heavy with clouds. He walked the lot alone, checking the window stickers. Each one had been updated. Features matched reality. Pricing included all fees. It was clean finally. He stopped beside the white SUV Brandon had once pitched to him as church and back. The sticker now stated the prior accident plainly, along with the repair details. A laminated Carfax report sat on the dash. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Inside, he found Mayra finishing one of the callbacks. Her brow was furrowed, but she was nodding. "That makes sense," she said into the headset. "Let me confirm with ownership and I'll call you right back." She muted the mic and looked over. That was the man who bought the black sedan. He says he was told it had a tech package, which he didn't see until after signing. He didn't want to cause trouble, but he's upset. Victor leaned forward. "Did he already take the car home?" "He did. 3 days ago. Offer to swap him into the correct trim and waive the reprocessing fee. If he wants to return it altogether, we'll eat the cost." Mayra blinked. "Really?" He was misled. "That's on us." She nodded slowly and unmuted her headset. At 2 o'clock, the district finance manager arrived. Victor had summoned him in person, no emails. They sat in the old manager's office, now cleared of clutter. The finance manager, Lewis, wore a pressed shirt and carried a tablet. Victor didn't waste time. "I want a full audit of every financing package sold over the past 6 months, especially anything Brandon touched," Lewis frowned. "That's going to take some time." "You'll have it," Victor said, "but I want a preliminary report by next week. Patterns, overcharges. Customers who canceled within days." Lewis hesitated. "Is this going to go public? If I find something criminal, yes. If it's just negligence, we fix it quietly. Either way, I'm not shielding anyone." Lewis nodded. "Understood." After he left, Victor sat alone for a while. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt tired. But it was the kind of tired that came from doing something that mattered. At 4, a woman entered the showroom with a folder clutched in both hands. She looked around uncertainly until Mayra approached her. They spoke quietly for a moment, then Mayra beckoned Victor over. "This is Mrs. Hanley. She bought a used sedan 2 weeks ago," Mayra said. Victor extended a hand. "Thank you for coming in." Mrs. Hanley looked unsure. "I got your letter." "I wasn't sure what to think." "Did Brandon sell you the car?" She nodded once. "I'd rather you tell me what happened," Victor said. She opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, a copy of her purchase contract, and a photo of the dashboard warning light that had come on the day after delivery. He said it had been fully inspected, but the check engine light came on before I even got the plates. Victor scanned the papers. "Did you take it somewhere?" "My son's a mechanic. He found an emissions issue that should have been caught." Victor gestured toward the service bay. "Let us fix it. No charge. If you want to return the car, we'll take it back. If you want to keep it, we'll give you a service voucher for future repairs." She looked stunned. "You're serious?" "I'm not going to let someone else's lie become your burden." She clutched the folder tighter. "I didn't expect anyone to care." Victor gave a small nod. "Well, we do now." She left the car with them and rode home in a courtesy shuttle. Victor watched her go, then walked back inside. The day wound down without drama. The receptionist logged out of the CRM system, the techs locked up the bay, and the sales team stowed their tablets. People moved slower, not from exhaustion, but from deliberation. No one was rushing out the door. No one was hiding. Victor lingered until the building was quiet. He walked one last loop through the lot. The lights buzzed overhead. A breeze moved through the trees lining the property. He paused beside the black sedan, the one Brandon had tried to push on him with false claims. It sat cleaner now, its truth laid bare in bullet points and ink. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the key fob. He unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, and started the engine. The dashboard lit up with no surprise warnings, no hidden issues. Just the soft hum of a machine ready to be driven, honestly this time. He backed up slowly, turned toward the exit, and pulled onto the road without looking back. Tomorrow, the store would open under new leadership. The systems would still need work. The hiring would take time, the reputation would take longer, but the foundation had been reset, not with a speech, not with a campaign, with truth, and that would hold.